What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackpine, joined always by my man in the corner, producer Nick Belsky. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers prepare for the Baltimore Ravens in a wild card matchup, but all eyes remain on what comes next. And, well, we're going to do a little bit of both. What is after the Steelers playoff run, if there is a playoff run, and, well, what comes during it? Because we're going to talk some quarterbacks, some Justin Fields, and whether or not he'll be on the field. Plus, it is Wednesday. Finally, after yesterday felt like Wednesday, today is actually Wednesday. We're diving into our power rankings wild card weekend edition. It's a good one here in the city of sin, good old Las Vegas. I attended the Sports Illustrated Person of the Year award last night. It was awesome. You know, Keegan-Michael Key, hosted the thing, and I laughed so hard my head still hurts a little bit. And then obviously Simone Biles and Travis Hunter and everybody else getting honored was pretty cool. How you feel, my friend?
Yeah, I was a little upset because I remembered that you said that was happening at the hotel I was staying at, and it took forever for me to get back from dinner because of that. So thank you to you and SI for making my commute home after dinner very, very hard.
Hey, no worries. That's what we're here for. That's what we're here for. I was walking around the hotel trying to find, because simultaneously, as crazy as this is, Nick's wife's and Nick were at the biggest conference apparently in the world. That's what I've been told all weekend long. It's the biggest conference ever. And I'm looking around like for it, can't find it anywhere. It is in the only part of the hotel where the SI thing is, but this thing is not. And I was like, well, awesome. That's great. So we did cross paths. I was looking for the Steve Aoki concert that you were texting me about last night. I was just gonna pop in real quick, just be like, I know some people. Don't even worry about it.
Yeah, something tells me, considering the amount of security measures I had to go through just to get in with a pass, you might have had some tough times unless you could get your Tom Cruise Mission Impossible on and kind of fall from the skylight.
I would just hide behind Simone Biles or something as she snuck her way in. And
hide behind Simone Biles? Okay.
Yeah, being in the presence of Simone Biles last night, I realized how small of a person she is. Which, yeah, you know, she's still the most impressive person I've ever been in the presence of. But, like,
gymnasts in general are small, but she's very short.
Yeah. Me and you are little guys, you know, like little. I was hanging out last night with like football. Grant Hill. I was having a conversation with Grant Hill, a former Raiders football player, and then this dude that I work with who's 6'9". And I was like, guys, my neck hurts looking up at you. This is ridiculous. So I can only imagine what she goes through on a daily basis, but shout out. It was a good honor. I was blessed to be there. So, and I couldn't find Steve Aoki. So it is what it is. Let's talk some Pittsburgh Steelers football. We will start with Mike Tomlin, who remains a topic of conversation, even though we know that topic of conversation always comes with okay, guys, let's relax. Let's get realistic about the situation. But now it is, can the Steelers trade Mike Tomlin? He has a no trade clause in his contract, but people still want to bring it up and act as if this is the year that if the Steelers lose in the first round of the playoffs, if they go 8 years without a playoff win, the Pittsburgh Steelers will move on and say, well, it was a good time, but it's time for a change. You could have an opinion on that. You could have an opinion against that. I mean, it goes both ways, but people are going to talk about it. And one team may have just opened the door to say, yeah, we might make a phone call. Chicago Bears general manager Ryan Poles told the media this week, quote, we'll look at all avenues to get the best coach here. There's going to be some names that you don't expect that are going to surprise you because we're digging deeper than we have before. I would imagine that means at least bare minimum a phone call to general manager Omar Khan to say, hey, pal, we've done business before. We have talked trade many times. Remember Chase Claypool? We try not to. You guys probably try to think about him all the time. Maybe we could get something else done. Now, would it happen? Probably not, you know, but I'm going to say probably and not definitely, because you could talk New York Jets. You can talk I don't know. You could bring up maybe the Raiders would be a team that Tomlin would have the train of thought behind, but the Chicago Bears are a team that if you went there as a head coach this offseason, you're going to a second year, number one pick in the draft, a guy that for 3 years, everybody expected to be the guy in Caleb Williams. You have a pretty good wide receiver core that doesn't cause issues. Let's remember that one. It is not a wide receiver core that is getting into fights during games. It is not a wide receiver core that is causing all sorts of drama. It is just a good wide receiver core that, yes, maybe turns the ball over in crucial games against the Green Bay Packers in Week 18, but you still end up with a win. You have a pretty solid running game and a developing running back in Roschon Johnson. And on top of that, your defense ain't bad. Your defense ain't bad. I would imagine you got full control of that bad boy as well. I'm not saying it's likely. I'm not even saying it's probable, okay? What I'm saying is that if we are going to talk about the teams that could call the Pittsburgh Steelers and offer them comparable compensation to say, hey, this is what we will give for Mike Tomlin. They own, I believe it's the 9th pick in the draft again this year. Maybe it's the 10th, somewhere around there, which is a great deal for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Plus, you'd probably get a little bit more. And it's not the worst team in the world for a head coach to go to and say, nah, maybe I think about it. Maybe I think about it. Now, again, I'm going to emphasize this. I'm going to continue to emphasize this. I do not believe that it would happen. I'm just saying Chicago seems like the top of the tier in my eyes. Maybe Vegas is number one, but I think Vegas has way too many holes. Chicago just needs an offensive line. Mike Tomlin hasn't built an offensive line in like a century. So he's been operating without one forever. I think he could do it again in Chicago. I mean, top of the list? I'm not asking if you think it could happen. I'm just saying top of the list.
I don't know what the list looks like for teams that Tomlin would waive his no trade clause to go to, but I know the Bears are at number 2 on the list of teams that he wouldn't. Why would you go to Chicago? I mean, I understand you laid out, yeah, they have all these pieces, but at the same time, they are on their 3rd top 11 quarterback since 2017. They recycle good players time after time after time. I mean, Khalil Mack wasted the beginning of his career in Chicago. Who's the other player I'm thinking of now? Roquan Smith wasted the beginning of his career in Chicago. Yes, if they had a head coach, things would be different, but I don't think Mike Tomlin's looking to go from where he is now all the way back to starting from square one with the Chicago Bears. So even in the hypothetical situation, I would think the Jets are the first team that he would say, not a chance in God's green earth would I waive my no trade clause to go there. I think the Bears would be right there at number 2, though.
Who would be top of your list? Who would be the team that you would say this is again, none are likely, but this is the most likely team Tomlin would at least go, maybe.
Of the current openings, I would say the Patriots are more likely than any other team.
The Patriots? Yeah. Why the Patriots? This one is, if Chicago is a no-go, I am very interested to hear why the Patriots are a go.
Because the Patriots have given coaches kind of carte blanche to do what they want and build the entire organization almost like a college coach does, where he has complete control. I think Tomlin likes that. And I think he goes to that organization knowing that it is an organization that has been stable for a lot of years, had one off year with Gerard Mayo, and we all kind of know there's some kind of weird things going on behind the scenes with that hiring and firing. But I think you go there, you have another young quarterback in Drake May, you have some good pieces on defense, including Christian Gonzalez, and you have an organization overall that is widely respected across the NFL, despite coming in top or bottom 5 in the league this year. I think Tomlin would rather go to the Patriots than go anywhere else. But again, as you mentioned, unlikely that he goes anywhere. But I think if he's waiving his no trade clause to go anywhere, it's New England this coaching cycle.
Okay. All right. Okay. I think New England has more holes than most teams that are available, but I understand the job security. You're not going to a franchise that just bails all the time. Like you could actually build something in New England. It's respectable. I understand that. Where would Vegas be on your list? I think Vegas strikes me as a Mike Tomlin team. they're just the Steelers of the West.
Yeah, I mean, that would be up on that list as well. I don't have the full list of current openings ahead of me.
I think it's them. I think it's New York. There's 6 of them. New York, the Bears, Jacksonville, Vegas, New England, and the Saints.
Vegas would probably be second to me, then the Saints would be third. Just again, Vegas seems like a Mike Tomlin town.
The
Vegas
Saints are third.
I would put the Saints third.
I'm just so stunned by this list. The Saints to me are like the forgotten team. You know what I mean? Like who are the New Orleans?
What division they play in though? So the bar to get back into relevancy is much lower than it is going to some of these other, especially like the Raiders. You got 3 teams in the playoffs this year. Your bar to get back to relevancy is very high in Las Vegas.
That's very true. That's very true. You could take that into account. Jacksonville, I think, would surprise me just because they're the Jacksonville Jaguars. There's like no history there, but that's a good team that just needs a head coach. You know, they have a lot of they have, I say, the least amount of holes. Obviously holes. They're a bad football team, but they have a quarterback, they have a running back, they have a wide receiver, they have a couple of pieces on their offensive line, not all of them, but a couple. Their defense is very but if Mike Tomlin's going to take on a project, he'd much rather take on a defense than an offense. Okay. I think I would replace Jacksonville. I think I'd go New England because I agree with you. I think that makes sense for Tomlin. New England, Raiders, Chicago, Jacksonville, Saints. The Jets aren't even on the list. They're, Tomlin would laugh so hard at anybody saying, "Oh, what about the New York Jets?" And Mike Tomlin, no. If Omar Khan came to him in the facility, because that's how that conversation would go, and say, "Hey, guess who called today? Woody Johnson." That would be his response. That would be his response every single time. It would never happen. But Chicago Bears, I would say they've opened the door. They've opened the door. All right, let's talk quarterbacks real quick. We got future, current. We've talked about this before, but we got to run it by it again. Albert Breer, Sports Illustrated's Albert Breer on the Dan Patrick Show said just the other day, quote, "I think it's possible that he has a Brett Favre hair across his ass. You could see a Vikings year for Favre from Aaron Rodgers somewhere else. I don't think it's impossible that maybe one last time he wants to come back and put everything into it." The team that he names as that possible Brett Favre year is the Pittsburgh Steelers. And we've laughed at this before. We've rolled our eyes many times. We'll do it again. I'll ask a different style of question here so that we don't keep it the same conversation every single time. Is Pittsburgh built for an Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre resurgence? Because you have to remember that Brett Favre walked into Minnesota. They had a pretty good team going on in Minnesota. It wasn't a bad team by no means. They just needed a quarterback. The Pittsburgh Steelers, well, if George Pickens is not catching footballs, they need a lot more than a quarterback. So is there a Brett Favre hair in Pittsburgh to be found somewhere?
I don't think there is. I mean, the Steelers are a pretty good team. I think that the Steelers, if they get above average quarterback play, are a team that might make some noise in the playoffs. They just haven't gotten that. But I also haven't seen that from Aaron Rodgers recently. Obviously, He missed the entire 2023 season due to an Achilles injury, but he's 40 years old. Coming back from that is not easy, as we saw this year. So I don't think there is a resurgence there. I think there is a conversation to be had about him potentially going to Pittsburgh. Not that I would want to do it, but I think that is the sad reality of the Steelers is right now they're not going to find a starter in the draft in 2025. The free agent class is very barren. I think Sam Darnold is going to wind up back where he is. So that takes off the top name. That's not even like a bona fide top name off the board. And if your options are between Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers, there's a conversation there. Now, would I take Justin over both of them? probably going into next year. But I think that we can't rule out the conversation, even though I think both me and you sitting here would say that's not the best, that's not a good option, and it's not a good solution for the Steelers next year. I don't think that Aaron Rodgers has much left. All respect to him. The guy's a Hall of Famer. The guy's a 4-time NFL MVP, a Super Bowl winner. But at 41 years old, a year removed from an Achilles tear, I don't see him resurging to the point of Brett Favre a la Minnesota Vikings. I just don't see it.
What would have to happen? Let's ask that. What would have to happen for Aaron Rodgers to end up in Pittsburgh?
Justin Fields would have to say, there's not a chance in God's green earth that I'm coming back.
Which is not impossible to happen.
And it literally comes down to Russell Wilson versus Aaron Rodgers. I think you have that conversation. And I think depending on what we see this weekend, that conversation could lean towards the ayahuasca guy.
Oh my gosh. Could you imagine? Could you imagine if Mike Tomlin or Arthur Smith, like there's got to be somebody else. You got to call somebody for somebody out there. I'll toss a couple of names out here. Hypotheticals. Let's have some fun with it. Because this is just depressing talk. That's all this is. It's noon on a Wednesday, and it's just bringing everybody down. Okay, this is Las Vegas. We're supposed to have fun. I'll toss a couple of names out there. You tell me if you'd take them over Aaron Rodgers, probably and/or Russell Wilson, but we'll just stick with Aaron Rodgers. Will Levis in a trade.
I'm still taking Aaron Rodgers over Will Levis.
Aiden O'Connell in a trade.
Still taking Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, okay. JJ McCarthy in a trade where you have to give up a second-round pick.
That one is interesting to me because JJ McCarthy, if he was in this year's draft, would be the first quarterback off the board. Now, he's coming off of a missed season, but you're essentially getting the best quarterback in this year's draft for a second-round pick. So I would definitely put JJ McCarthy, if he's up for sale, ahead of Aaron Rodgers.
Kirk Cousins, and you don't got to pay him. They figure it out. This is another Russell Wilson situation.
I would still take Aaron Rodgers over Kirk Cousins.
Joe Flacco.
Oh my God, because he's gonna play for every single team in the AFC North before he calls it quits. No, I would. That's interesting because all you're asking him to do is be a game manager. You're not asking him to be a superstar and play hero ball. That's when Russell Wilson's gotten in trouble these last 4 weeks, is when he's tried to play hero ball. So if there's anybody that just exemplifies not playing hero ball, it is Joe Flacco. But again, man, that is, again, it's a bad, you're not happy with either, but you're more happy, I think, with Rodgers than Flacco.
All right. Last one I'll toss out here for you. Brock Purdy, but you got to pay him.
That's kind of what the Steelers need. I mean, you're going to have to pay a quarterback eventually, but you need a guy that can come out and kind of just distribute. And I think Brock Purdy has shown that he can do it. Now, do the Steelers have the pieces and do they have the weapons? No, but I think that there's a world in which Brock Purdy is a better option 1-for-1 than Aaron Rodgers.
All right. A bonus here. Kyle Allen.
I mean, perfect passer rating, no incompletions this season. I think you go Kyle Allen over the world.
But I agree. I don't disagree. Yeah, we'll see what happens. All right, let's talk quarterbacks right now. Justin Fields. That's the topic. We got Shannon Sharp and everybody and their mother saying bench Russell Wilson. Me included. I was asked 40 times last night at this event, hey, it's going out Russell Wilson. I don't know, man. I hate to be that guy, but I think Justin Fields should be the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like, hate to be that guy. Don't got anything about Russ. And I was talking to people from Denver saying that they said, like, Russ is fantastic. It's just like he just doesn't have it. And you're like, yeah, I tried to deny that. I don't think I could deny it anymore. Like, that's just what it is. Justin Fields is not going to start for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but Mike Tomlin's trying to make it known that, hey, he's playing. Justin Fields, on the other hand, is doing everything in his power to make it known, I'm not playing, pal. Like, it's not happening. And I think it stirs a conversation of where Justin is mentally, because he's saying, yeah, I got no problem wasting the Ravens' time with them game planning for me. And everybody says, is the Justin Fields package going to be included? No, chances are very minimal. It'll be a couple of times, but chances are this is not a Justin Fields heavy game unless Russell Wilson just really looks like terrible from start to finish. But I think that it brings up a conversation about whether or not Justin Fields wants to really be here moving forward, because it kind of feels like Justin went from like, hey, he's part of this to he's not part of this, but Mike Tomlin's just using him as a decoy, and that can't be fun to happen. Do you think, okay, do you think that Mike Tomlin and the way he's going about this is ruining the Steelers' chances of keeping Justin Fields?
I think there has to be some impact on the psyche of Justin Fields. Like you mentioned, he was part of this even after Russell Wilson was put in. And Russell Wilson, when he was playing well, I think Justin could sit back and say, all right, you know what? I'm contributing. Russ is playing well, so it's not like he benched me for somebody that's struggling. Now you look at it, and yes, he suffered that injury, which is why he wasn't involved for multiple weeks. But now all reports are indicating that he is healthy and ready to go in if need be. And I understand it's not easy to go in cold and make a play, but he's done it when asked to do it this year. So the fact that they haven't gone back to it, and if they don't go back to it on Saturday, I think you have to imagine that it damages the psyche and the thought process of Justin Fields when considering, hey, do I come back here or do I go somewhere else with another opportunity? I mean, I think it's fair to say that he probably feels like he wasted some time in Chicago, that he thought he was going to be the guy, and it didn't help him. He didn't help them. And then he needed a fresh start. He got that in Pittsburgh, and it started very well for him. And then Tomlin said, you know what? You're good. We need great. He goes to Russell Wilson. And as I said at the end of yesterday's show, Russell Wilson hasn't been even close to a baseline of good the last 4 weeks. And you see Justin Fields sitting on the sideline saying, I feel like I could help this team and I'm not getting the opportunity. How wouldn't that damage your psyche and damage your view of coming back in 2025?
I 100% agree. I look at this from start to finish and just say, Mike Tomlin made the comment, I get paid. This is why I'm well compensated. This is why we do this. This is why I make the decisions. I back the decisions. And it's coming back to bite him in the butt because the decision's not working out. And all he did in the process was just pretty much just toss Justin Fields to the side, toy with them, and now he's using him as a decoy in an instance where I got a hard time just judging from the comments of Mike Tomlin and Justin Fields saying Mike Tomlin explained to Justin Fields what was going to happen in these instances, that he was just going to say, hey, I'm going to toss it out there that you're really playing, but it's your chances are you're not really playing that much. I have a hard time believing that was the case. Instead, I look at it and say, Justin's getting this from the media because the media's got to ask about it, saying, are you going to play this weekend? Are you excited to play this weekend? He's like, I'm not playing this weekend. You know, why would I play this? Why would I be involved in this game? Nothing's changed except for my head coach talking and not talking back to me. I am very skeptical about the whole. Mike Tomlin was very open about the communication between Russ and Justin during the whole switch and while it was happening. I got a feeling that's not all as true as we think it is. And I agree with you. I think it's messing with the psyche. I think it's Justin Fields wanted to come to Pittsburgh because he believed he would be treated well here, and he's probably not. I also think there are probably a number of people in that building that want Justin Fields to be the quarterback, have wanted Justin Fields to be the quarterback, and he's hearing that while his head coach is ignoring it and his starting quarterback is not playing well. I think this is all circulating. I think I agree with you. It's messing with the mentals. It's got to be messing with the mentals, and I think it is putting a damper in the Pittsburgh Steelers' opportunity to keep him, unless it's a guarantee. Like, it's got to be you are the guy, no questions asked. We're bringing back Arthur Smith. We're going to get you a wide receiver. There is no questions. You will be the starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And if that's not the case, I have a hard time believing Justin Fields will come back for a competition, because essentially, as crazy and as bad as this sounds, doesn't it feel like Justin Fields is the new Mason Rudolph? Doesn't it kind of feel like that's how this is going down?
Yeah, I mean, just the way that the fact that he's wearing the same number is a little bit poetic, but I mean, the way that he was kind of sold a bill of goods, and right now it's not seeming to be, again, the way the season is shaped out, it's not always going to be you get what you're asked or you're told you're going to get, but it feels like at a base level, if you're trying to kind of break this down, sold a bill of goods about your future with the organization and not followed up upon. I think that was the story for Mason, and it feels like it's starting to become the story for Justin.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I agree. I look at it and say the Steelers are toying with this guy. They're not being honest about the situation to him or to us. And because like you lose the faith of guys in those instances. And I think that's what's happening with Justin Fields. We'll see what happens, but it's a weird week for the Pittsburgh Steelers and that kind of stuff. All right, let's finish off our agenda here for this Wednesday with Wild Card Weekend Power Rankings. Pittsburgh Steelers, Baltimore Ravens. Let's get it.
You know, I can't give you all the ingredients to the hot dog. You might not like it.
Shout out. This one's depressing, my friend. This one was tough to put together. It sucks. I feel like this entire episode is kind of just not lively enough. You know, I feel bad about it. It's
a lot of off-season talk for a team that's getting ready for a playoff game.
Yeah, right. Like, this is not what we should be doing. I've been thinking about that for 48 hours now. Like, I'm in Vegas. There's no pressure for me to get back to Pittsburgh because it feels almost as if there's nothing to talk about that's happening for the game right now. That's what I feel like. Like, what are we asking? What are the questions that you're looking? There's no injuries. There's no it's just, are you going to beat the Baltimore Ravens or not? That's the storyline. Like, that is the only thing left to answer. That is where we are. But we're going to talk power rankings. Number 5, kicking off this list for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm going to go with a guy who hasn't made this all season long and probably deserved to the entire time. But just, because the offense at times were clicking. The defense was killing it in moments. You had Russell Wilson making his way up and down this list real rapidly. George Pickens coming across. And even when Chris Boswell wasn't even included, there wasn't enough room for this guy. Plus, he was dealing with some injuries. I'm going number 5. The man that is the most underappreciated player on the Pittsburgh Steelers roster. Hands down. Alex Highsmith himself. My friend, Alex Highsmith is a guy that you could talk Nick Herbig, trade Alex Highsmith, TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, blah, 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 blah. You want to know who the third best player on the Pittsburgh Steelers defense is? Time and time again. It's Alex Highsmith. And there's a guy ahead of him on this list. And I'm going to be honest. It's because that guy's playing better. It's not because he is better. Alex Highsmith is the third best player on the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. And it's almost not even close how far ahead he is from number 4. But we'll go to number 4, who is number 4 on the Pittsburgh Steelers defensive rankings here. A guy who's been back and forth and finishes the regular season on this one, heading into the postseason. The Steelers defense has struggled, okay? And this guy has made it known he's not happy about it. He's made it known there are issues. He's going to call out those issues because that's who he is. I think his personality alone gets him on this list, but his play certainly makes it that much easier to place him top 5 on the Pittsburgh Steelers. When nobody's making plays, this guy's making plays time and time again, and he's a blast to watch. He should have been a Pittsburgh Steeler 6 years ago. Took him 6 years too long to get to Pittsburgh. Here he is. He finishes off the regular season, heads into the playoffs at number 4. That is good old Deshaun Elliott. There are few like him in the NFL. I am still disappointed in myself that I didn't know about this guy until he showed up in Pittsburgh. I'm glad I got to watch him, though. I'm glad I got to watch him. Number 3 on this list is, old reliable, my friend. A guy who played through, he had a flu game, and we didn't even acknowledge the flu game. Nobody acknowledged that he made plays while barely being able to speak. And I'm somebody I've been sick twice in 2 weeks, and I'm like, I can't even function. I could barely make toast for myself, let alone play an NFL football game. Shout out to this guy. He is the constant for the Pittsburgh Steelers this season. I said it time and time again. I'll say it again. This is his Canton year. This is his get him into the Hall of Fame. Should have been his let's make a Super Bowl run season. Hopefully it's next season. We'll see what happens. Maybe it's this one. Number 3 is Cam Hayward. Number 2. The NFLPA released their All-Pros today. There were 2 guys on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Miles Killebrew and Chris Boswell. And while Miles Killebrew is having a good year and deserves all the recognition, he is a stud among studs. Number 2 is Chris Boswell. If this team had one less win, if they were a 9-8 football team, if they missed the playoffs like the Cincinnati Bengals did, if those roles were reversed, you want to know who the team MVP would have been this season? Would have been Chris Boswell. No questions asked. You can't give a team MVP to a kicker when you're in the playoffs. You could when you miss the playoffs. But I'm sorry, the Steelers are 8-9 without Chris Boswell, and he's not getting the opportunities, but that's more on the offense than it is Chris Boswell these days. He hits them when he gets them. Number 2 is Chris Boswell. And number 1, let's top off this bad boy to head into the wild card weekend with one last regular season power rankings. I mean, it's the guy that's been 1-2, never fell below 2 ever once. I don't think he ever will, to be very honest with you. He's a guy that continues to make noise. He had a strip sack that got called back that, to be very, very honest, and again, depressing, might have ruined his defensive player of the year opportunity there, because that play, right, that was it. That was the, okay, he did it again. Awesome. There it is. Wrap it up, put it in a bow. He did it. It's TJ Watt. TJ Watt's number 1. I don't know if he wins defensive player of the year. I do know that if he gets that strip sack, he probably does. Trey Hendrickson might have put himself in that spot, though, against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I just don't know if you could give it to a guy who hasn't made the playoffs. But that's TJ Watt, and there's no questions asked. Russell Wilson drops off of this list, and to be honest, I think he's fallen. We didn't do this in 2 weeks, but 3 weeks maybe. It's been a minute since we've done power rankings. It's a drastic fall for Russell Wilson. TJ Watt, Chris Boswell, Cam Hayward, Deshaun Elliott, Alex Highsmith, and a team that, well, hasn't scored more than 17 points in 4 weeks. It's hard to put offensive guys on this list. So it's all defense all the time. Your thoughts on wild card weekend power rankings there?
Yeah, the last time we did this list was actually before the 3 games in 11 days stretch. So before they went on this 4-game losing streaks, and you had Russell Wilson on there. And I think it's fair to say if we did it the first week after that Philadelphia game, that we would have also probably taken Russell Wilson right off this list and he wouldn't have gotten back on. But no, I like the list for a team that is, as we saw last Saturday, relying on their defense, relying on their special teams. It's only making sense that it's all defense and special teams. Especially, I'm glad you mentioned Cam Hayward in the flu game. It's not just that he played through it. It's not just that he had a decent game where, all right, well, he was looking like pretty much regular Cam Hayward. He had 3 pass deflections. He almost came down with one of those as an interception. He had himself a tremendous game. And in fact, there was at one point a play where I think that he just burst through the line of scrimmage, and it was probably one of his best reps of the season. Doing all of this when sick in late December is just absolutely ridiculous. So
at 35 years old.
At 35 years old, Cam Hayward, honestly, if it wasn't for Chris Boswell having a historic season and TJ Watt being a absolute freak of nature, Cam Hayward is number 1 on a lot of different teams' power rankings lists. He just happens to be on a team that has 2 players that just stay at that level in Boz and TJ. So I like the list. And of course, I like Deshaun Elliott as well. You know, he's always been a fixture on these lists. So happy that he's on there for the last time in the regular season, and expect that he will probably be on there once we do it again next week following Wild Card Weekend.
We're going to go over this next week. We'll dive into this, or 2 weeks, 3 weeks, possibly the second week of February. Who knows? Whenever the season ends.
That'd be nice.
The best additions to the Steelers. Deshaun Elliott, clear 1, right?
I would have to. I mean, I'm trying to think of somebody else. I can't. I think that his impact was immediate and consistent. Yes. The only time he didn't make an impact is when he was injured, and it was noticeable. And that, in fact, probably made you feel more likely to say that he is probably the number 1 addition because of how much it dropped off in the secondary play after he left the team for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it was. So, yeah, he's probably firmly in that number 1 spot. After that, we can have a discussion.
Yeah, I'm excited for that discussion. All right. We're going to finish off the show the same way we do every single day. We're going to dive into your questions. But first, We're going to take a quick break here from our boys over at DraftKings.
Hey, football fans, there's only a few short weeks left in the season, and we've got some exciting wildcard games to look forward to. Get in on the action right now with my partners at DraftKings Sportsbook. They're offering all new customers $200 in bonus bets instantly after betting just $5. Don't let this slip away. Download the DraftKings app now and sign up using our code ALLSTEELERS. The crown is yours. Stay in the action and use your $200 in bonus bets on DraftKings same-game parlays for a shot at an even bigger payout. Combine multiple bets together from the same game. Love the thrill of betting? DraftKings has got you covered. Bet live on in-progress games right as they happen, making watching the game that much more exciting. If sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. You can still join in on all the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy and have the shot to win cash prizes. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers use my promo code ALLSTEELERS and bet just $5 on any wager and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code ALLSTEELERS only at DraftKings Sportsbook.
Shout out our boys over at DraftKings. All right, we're going to finish up the show the same way we do every single day. We're going to dive into all of your questions. So make sure you're tossing them in the chat. We'll get to all of them. Before we head out of here, Nick, what do we got?
Let's kick things off with Chris. Appreciate you jumping in as always. Chris says, guys, I hate to say it, but maybe the Steelers need to trade Tomlin to actually change the culture in Pittsburgh. I don't trust Tomlin after 17 years to fix these issues.
Yeah, I think it's more like my argument for trading Mike Tomlin is very simple. Sometimes in the NFL, sometimes in sports, sometimes in life, a change of scenery is just what's needed. It really is. I mean, we've done it. We did it on the show. We were a pre-recorded 9 a.m. podcast. And one day we decided, you know what, let's go live. Let's see what happens. And it's been great. I've had a blast doing these. I'm sure you have too. This is, you get to interact with people. It just brings more light, more energy to what we do. I think that happens all the time. I think things get stale. You know, sometimes change is just best for everybody. That being said, Tomlin gets traded. The expectation is not Tomlin's done. The expectation is he goes to the Patriots. Within 3 years, I would expect them to be a Super Bowl contender, a real one. I would expect the Steelers to be one too, but I would also guess that maybe the Steelers got to go through some struggles because you don't know if you're going to get another Tomlin. You're taking a shot in the dark that you're getting a good head coach. So it's a risk reward going on here. There always will be. You got to take the risk to earn any reward possible. I get that. And I'm not arguing against that. I just think it's sometimes a change of scenery is best. You have to go through struggles to get through that change of scenery. It's a complete shot in the dark about whether or not it works or what side it works for. But it is sometimes worth that risk for sure.
Let's jump to Chris's second comment here, who says, I would take Brock Purdy at quarterback only if Brandon Ayuk comes too. Are you ready for Ayuk Watch Part 2, Noah?
I would appreciate it. Could you, Matt, what would you have to give up for Brandon Ayuk and Brock Purdy? I mean, you'd sign Brock Purdy. He'd be a free agent. So you're looking at $40 million a year, $45 million a year there on top of a second-round pick, a third-round pick, and $27 million a year from Brandon Ayuk. I mean, that's an expensive offseason. It's an expensive offseason. I wouldn't be against it. I also don't know if I'm trading for Brandon Ayuk after a torn ACL, though. $27 million for a guy who's coming off a knee injury is debatable and brings a lot of concern.
Let's go over to Miguel, who says, seems like Tomlin cares more about his winning season streak than winning in the playoffs. Once the Steelers hit 10 wins, it's been difficult to watch this year.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I don't think that he is concerned. I don't follow the same narrative that he's concerned about the winning streak more than the playoffs, but I do agree that it's difficult to watch. My thought to make things, just to put things into context, okay, is if Cincinnati beats the Steelers the first time and the Steelers beat Cincinnati the last time, the conversation is completely different. If Baltimore beats Pittsburgh the first time and the Steelers beat Baltimore the second time, conversation's completely different. So it's about when the losses happened and how they built up. that doesn't excuse a lot of things. The Steelers look terrible. Their offensive line is awful. Russell Wilson looks like he is like come and gone. It's done. It's over with. The defense is at times, really bad at others, okay at best most times. And the coaching is very hit or miss. Very, very hit or miss. So I agree with all those things while also, pulling back the overreactions to say if one of these changes, people are not as concerned right now. But I agree with you. I think, Mike Tomlin says it best all the time. And it's very ironic that he says this and about himself is that he loves discomfort. And it's almost as if he loves discomfort so much that he manifests not being comfortable and not allowing his team to be comfortable in moments where they could be. That's the ironic tragedy of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Let's jump over to DJ Thomas, who says Steelers haven't played on a Sunday in 4 weeks. With the Ravens game, that makes 5. I do believe. Do you think this plays a role in the 4-game slide?
I do and don't. I mean, I think it's super difficult. I think the Steelers got screwed with their schedule, and I think that the NFL really did them dirty in what has gone on, but they also did a lot of teams dirty. I don't think it has much to do with it. I think it has something to do, like Kansas City is an example. Like you're playing the best team in football and you're supposed to beat them on 2 days rest. That's just not realistic. Like the Kansas City Chiefs are a team where you need 2 weeks to game plan for as it is, let alone 48 hours. It's just not doable. But I don't think not playing on a Sunday, I think it hurts them. The NFL is definitely punishing the Steelers, but there's a lot more that goes into it than just the day of the week.
Let's go to Cody Silva, who has a pair here. He says, Noah and Nick, I don't want to waste too much of your time, but can you rank your playoff team rankings? Let's go with just the AFC to save time here a little bit.
Yeah, I'm going Kansas City Chiefs, Buffalo Bills, Baltimore Ravens. I'm going to do it. I'm going to go Los Angeles Chargers, Houston Texans, Pittsburgh Steelers, Denver Broncos.
I would agree with all of that, except put Buffalo first. I think Buffalo winning against Kansas City, I would put them ahead of them. And then also I would put the Steelers behind the Broncos.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. That one I was not. I thought I was going to get some pushback on Houston, but I didn't expect it to go the other way around. I like it.
Yeah. Cody also wants to know, did you guys think that if Tomlin got a hold of a team with great talent like the Eagles, they would never lose again?
Yeah, I think Tomlin is 10 times Nick Sirianni, and the difference there, this is a good example. The difference there is Nick Sirianni doesn't have control over anything that's happening in games except for when to call a timeout. That's it. He doesn't run the defense. He doesn't run the offense. When like people were stunned by that, they're like, well, what do you do? I'm a head coach, man. I do everything. Like I do it all without actually control. That's why we have coordinators. I don't know Tomlin would be able to do that. If Tomlin gave up power of the defense, I think the Steelers would be improved. And the fact that he doesn't now, maybe not to TA, maybe to a really good defensive coordinator, but if the Steelers went out and hired a Brian Flores or a Robert Saleh and then gave him the defense, I think it would be improved. So that would be my only concern. I think they'd be great, but would Tomlin bring them down by having to control the defense and make it his defense?
Let's go to Vibin with the Dogs, who checks in today, says, do you think Tomlin is too stubborn to develop a young quarterback? Tired of these older guys. Also, a Smith-Fields pairing with the Jets in 2025?
I hope that Arthur Smith does not. I like Arthur Smith too much and Justin Fields too much to have them go to the Jets. I just do. I'd feel too bad for both of them. I don't think Tomlin's too stubborn. I really don't. I think that it's a bad example. He got Ben, awesome. He got Mason. Ben didn't like Mason. That wasn't Tomlin. Ben didn't like Mason. That was the issue there. You get Kenny Pickett. You try really hard, but Kenny just isn't it, man. Kenny's not a starting quarterback in the NFL. And then you get Justin, but you've already, tied your horse to the Russell Wilson thing. So you have to stick with them in Mike Tomlin's head, which isn't the case, shouldn't be the case, but was the case. I think that's it. Is Mike Tomlin's too stubborn to go back on decisions he's already made and promises he's made to players. And that's where it becomes an issue. But no, I don't think that I think he could develop. I think if you got him a good quarterback, he'd be patient enough with him to be good. The only thing is you got to be good enough to get the Steelers to the playoffs in year one, because the Steelers aren't going to miss the playoffs for a rookie quarterback. That's where the impatience comes in. I think that's organization, not just Tomlin.
Let's go over to Austin, who checks in and says, how would you feel about a Fields and Ginty combination next year in Pittsburgh?
I mean, who would not feel good about that one? That would be a blast. That would be so much. It'd be so much speed. You don't even need wide receivers. Just run the option every play. You are now Army Navy. That is what you do. And you don't change your offense, and it would be a blast. It would be put Jaylen Warren back there, run the 3 back. It would be I'm all about it. I think it would be so much fun to watch.
Let's go over to Marlon, who says, is this more Tomlin stinks, or the fan base loves this team so much they keep believing in less talented offenses? We see players go elsewhere and disappear, and they are our playmakers.
I think it's a little. I don't think Tomlin stinks. Okay, I think that's. I don't think he stinks. I think that he's got holes and issues and flaws. We'll say that. I think Tomlin's a good coach, though, that leads winning teams. I also think that, yes, the fan base as a whole, me and Nick as a whole, like a lot, we've done this before. Everybody does this every year, is you try to blind yourself to the issues. Last year was the offensive line's great. Yeah, it'll be just fine. They drafted Broderick Jones. Things are good. No, they weren't. They were awful. And we ignored it up until we realized it was awful. This year was the wide receiver core. It's like, Van Jefferson's catching 300 passes a day. Yeah, that's awesome until he doesn't step back towards the ball. Like, it doesn't mean anything that he could catch the football if he's never open. That's not how that works. I think that's the issues that come into play here. Now, there are other things that you have to include into this, like what's going wrong with the Steelers. The fact that there are no apparent flaws on the defense. Like, you can't look at the Steelers defense and say, oh, that's going to be the issue. Oh, this is where the hole is. No, there are everybody top to bottom in the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, maybe outside of the depth on corner, but Corey Trice you feel good about, and the depth at the defensive line. Like, there are no glaring, we ignored this hole. No, there was none. So that you have to take into account, and that is definitely an issue. But I think it's a little bit of both. I think Tomlin's got his flaws. I think the fan base and the media and everybody else ignore the flaws of the roster heading into the season because they think it's the Steelers, and the Steelers could do big things all the time. And then I also think that it's performance, and sometimes this just doesn't work out the way that you want it to.
Let's go to 814 Outdoors, who says, who do you think was the biggest bust on the roster this year?
It's got to be Broderick Jones, right? It's got to be Broderick Jones. Like, that's the easy answer. Is he was the building block. He was the take a step forward, massive season. He's the guy that leads every other guy on that offensive line. You have your piece, and he struggled mightily throughout most of the season. He's definitely taken steps forward, which makes you excited about next year, but I think the easy answer is Broderick Jones. I don't even know if I have like a number 2 on the Cam Sutton, maybe. That stinks to say, but Cam Sutton might be number 2.
Yeah, Cam Sutton, if it wasn't for the fact that I think Broderick's struggles have made more of an impact, I think Cam Sutton is the easy answer, because Broderick is kind of made up for some of those mistakes by being better in the back half of the season. Cam Sutton came in, took snaps away from Beanie Bishop, who was steadily getting better every week, and Cam Sutton has just not been good since coming into this team. And a lot of people in the comment section I saw say Van Jefferson. Look at his career stats. This is Van Jefferson. He can't be a bust whenever he's doing exactly what he's been doing the entire time in the NFL. He had one great year One breakout year in LA and 800 yards. Every other year, he's between 200 and 300 receiving yards. So this is exactly what you should have expected from Van.
Yeah, it's you can't pick a guy that came in here as a third wide receiver who just got pushed into a second wide receiver and name that guy as the guy. It's like saying Corey Trice was a disappointment. No, he's a guy who had 0 days of experience in the NFL. Like that's or Roman Wilson, who might be on this list, but I think there's also an asterisk there.
Let's go to Johan, who says, I strongly believe our defense can beat the Ravens, but do you guys think that the offense can pull it off? Can we see the old Russ revive to the guy that we all saw at the beginning of the season?
I don't know. I truly don't know. Like, I was talking to people last night who have covered Russ before, who have told me, and it's upsetting, but this is what to expect. This is who Russell Wilson is. This is who Russell Wilson's always been. It's been a long time since Russ has been able to do this for a full season, and maybe that's where we're at. I don't really know. I hope not. I hope that he could, but I don't have much confidence in him being able to.
Let's go to Vibin' with the Dogs, who says, hypothetically, if Arthur Smith left for the Jets, could you see Justin Fields going with him so he doesn't have to learn a new playbook?
I could, but like realistically, from everything I've been told, Arthur Smith's, and I could be totally wrong here. Like, it's not, if I don't write it and I just tell you guys this, it's just, I'm being told. It's not necessarily like, I'm trying not to report. I'm more so just speaking what I know to make sure that you guys have all the information that I have, even if that information is still maybe not 100%. The conversations I've had make me feel like Arthur Smith wants nothing to do with the New York Jets. So I would have a hard time believing he's going there. If he did, yeah, I could see Justin Fields going there, especially if you're going to give him an opportunity. You got Garrett Wilson there. You still have Devontae Adams there. You got Breece Hall there. I mean, why not? Why wouldn't you want to go to New York?
Let's go over to Logan, who says, why do the Steelers like to operate offensively in limited space? They bring in multiple tight ends, use short splits on their wide receivers, and let opponents stack the box. And then they try the power toss right into it.
Yeah. Every single time. I don't know why. I have no idea what's going on here. And to be like honest, I probably should have just sat down, and I probably still should sit down at some point and just watch some Arthur Smith in Tennessee, and see if this is what he always did and it just worked before he was in Pittsburgh. I don't know, but they become a very limited, restricted offense a lot of the times, and very predictable. And there's no explanation behind it except for the fact that they keep doing it, and it's just who they've become. That's their identity. And it doesn't work, but I wish I knew. That's on me. I should go back and spend some time to see if this has always been the thing with Arthur Smith. But it is shocking to me that is the one adjustment they just ignore every single time.
Let's jump to business is booming 19. Who do they hire if Tomlin goes?
Oh, that's a good one. Ben Johnson would fit very well in Pittsburgh. I'd say that would be a big name that fixes some offenses. I think that would be huge. Mike Vrabel, former Pittsburgh Steelers 3rd round pick out of Ohio State. I think that would be pretty cool. Who else is out there? I bet you they'd give Bill Belichick a call. And I don't know. That might be it. That might be my list. Just Vrabel, Ben Johnson to start with, and see if you could get one of that. That's the thing with Pittsburgh, man, is you would not have to do much convincing to get people here. This would not be the Jaguars or the Raiders or the Jets, where you got to make some crazy offer to get this guy. And Ben Johnson's like, no, dude, I'm going back to Detroit. This is the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is a 10-7 football team. This is a team that is always a contender, always going to win. The most historical franchise in football. Like, you could call anybody and be like, you want to come to Pittsburgh? Chances are they'd be like, yeah, I think that'd be pretty good. And I'm pretty confident Mike Tomlin's making crazy money. So they'd spend crazy money on a head coach.
Yeah, and you want to talk about job security as well. Look at what the results have been the last 10 years. It's like, man, I don't even have to turn this around significantly. I just have to
No.
take what's already looking pretty good. And if you're Ben Johnson, like you mentioned, he chose to go back to Detroit because he didn't like the options that were available to him last year. If the Steelers job became available, and that is a big if that is probably not going to come to fruition, that's probably the top and most attractive job for the entire NFL, especially, let's not forget, these guys, for better or worse, very egotistical.
Yeah.
I'm sure Ben Johnson would look at this team and say, well, the defense is built. I can fix that offense. If anybody can, I can fix that offense. So I think that he would look at that as a very attractive option.
Yeah, the Steelers would have. That would be the one caveat of like, okay, this is why you trade Mike Tomlin, is simply because replacing him you would have your pick of head coach.
Let's go to Jordan, who says, do you think the offense was a facade these past weeks and we'll see different plays and an entirely new look to kick off the playoffs?
I don't. I wish I could say I do, but I don't. I think this is just who the offense has become. They're doing all of the same plays. They're running all of the same plays that they've ran all season. They're just not getting the results. They're becoming predictable. There's nobody left to like add in here and make. That's the thing. That's the problem with the Steelers offense is it's not like sometimes it's execute. Sorry, sometimes it's play calling. Sometimes it's like, what are you doing? Why did you do this? But a lot of times it's execution and just the fact that these guys just aren't getting it done. And I think because that you got nowhere to turn. Like you could put Mike Vrabel or Mike Williams out there a little bit. You could toss Justin Fields out there a little bit. At the end of the day, this offense just doesn't have enough to cook, and that's what's going wrong with it.
Let's go to Hip Hopopotamus, who says, how many playoff games would Tomlin have to win this year in order for you guys to regain faith in him?
I think one. I think if we beat the Baltimore Ravens, I'm like everybody should be like, okay, that was huge. that was a good one. Now, what happens in the second game? You know, you go to Buffalo and you lose by 40, or you go to Kansas City, you lose by 40. That doesn't look very good. But you beat Baltimore. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt for sure. For sure. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt and say, you did it.
I was going to say it depends on how you beat Baltimore too, because a lot of these times that the Steelers have beaten Baltimore in recent years, the Ravens do as much beating of themselves than the Steelers do of beating Baltimore. If the Steelers get out to a lead in this one and it's 14-7, and all of a sudden Baltimore forgets they have Derrick Henry like they did in the first game of the season between these two, I think you would need Tomlin to win another game for me to regain confidence personally.
I agree with that. I agree with that. But I also think if this game ended 18-16 and the Steelers just beat them and Chris Boswell scored all their points, I would look at it and say, Steelers beat them. You know, you got to move on from Russell Wilson because he's clearly not the answer, but they did enough. But I agree with you. I think the Ravens do kind of shoot themselves in the foot in the playoffs and in these games against the Steelers. And if that's the case, I mean, that's you talk about that if it happens.
Let's go over to Ricky, who says, why are we incapable of making adjustments against pass rushers? Dan Moore has been getting destroyed, and we give him zero help, even though we have two great pass blocking running backs.
I don't know. You also have a tight end in Darnell Washington that is pretty good. You got Michael Pruitt that's pretty good at pass blocking. Connor Hayward's literally a fullback. I agree. I wish I knew. Like I wish I knew why they don't do these things. The solutions are obvious. That's the worst part about the Pittsburgh Steelers is that the solutions to the issues when it comes to schematics and game plan and how you're going about plays are so obvious to how to fix them and what to do next to improve things. And the Steelers just ignore it to continue to do the same thing. They have a lot of faith in Dan Moore. I'll tell you that. I think that's warranted up until these last couple of weeks. But I wish I knew. Like, I wish I knew why the Steelers do not make these adjustments. But they'll just tell you it's because we have a lot of faith in Dan Moore. It's because we have a lot of faith in Broderick Jones. Okay. How's that working out for you? Is that working out well? Doesn't seem like it.
You can faith your way to a first-round exit if that's the case. Let's go to DKB17, who says, I think the Steelers should shop the pro market for a wide receiver too and then draft a defensive line cornerback rather than drafting a wide receiver in round one. Do you agree?
So hit the free agency market for a wide receiver, draft it. Yeah, I agree with this. I like this game plan. I personally think that they should go get T. Higgins, and I'm going to continue to push that. I think T. Higgins is a name. I'll toss another name out there too. I think that the Steelers could do something crazy on their defensive line and like go get a name like Trey Hendrickson or something, and just say like, let's just make a splash on the defensive line and see what happens. I think they could do something like that, but I would agree with you. I think that their best route is to sign a wide receiver, spend the money there, and go get a defensive line or a corner in the NFL draft. Pair them up with Joey Porter Jr., Cam Hayward, Keanu Benton, and develop those guys, especially because you get a stronger and a quicker impact out of a lot of those guys, and their longevity is usually longer as well.
Let's go over to Dion, who says, if the Steelers get rid of Tomlin, they would be signaling a rebuild. Would you be open to getting rid of TJ, Minka, and Pickens to bring in fresh talent?
I disagree with that. I don't think they would be signaling a rebuild. I think it would be signaling a fresh start. I think it would be a move to try to get over the playoff slump. I think that's what it would be, but I don't think it'd be a rebuild. I don't agree with that one. I also would not be open to getting rid of TJ. That's where that list ends for me. I would be open to George Pickens. I think you should trade. I'm on board of you could get a lot for George Pickens, and it's just not the output compared to the compensation just don't match up. You could get more, and you could sign a wide receiver with less issues who has less bad attention on him. And Minka, I think Minka is a very good player who gets a lot of good recognition, who's a key piece to the Steelers defense that I think you would miss if you didn't have him here. But I think you could get so much for Minka Fitzpatrick right now that you're going to it's like trading in a car. You know, you're at that time right now where it's evening out and your car is about to spend or be worth less than what you owe on it, or worth more than whatever it's supposed to be. Doesn't matter. Minka is about to hit that point where your trade compensation compared to your contract is not going to match up anymore. I think you could take advantage of that. Do I think they will? No. I think George is on the table. I think George is very much so on the table. TJ and Minka are not, but I do not think this is a rebuild. If they, which they wouldn't, but if they did move on from Tomlin, I don't think it would signal a rebuild.
Let's finish it off with Leroy, who says, what are the chances the Steelers get rid of Terrell Austin, and who would you replace him with if you were the Steelers?
Yeah, so Terrell Austin signed a contract extension through 2026, so he's here through 2026. That's not going to happen. They're not going to get rid of him. Who would I replace him with if I gave complete control of the defense to this guy? Robert Saleh would definitely be on that list. Mike Vrabel maybe, but I think he's going to be head coach. Robert Saleh would be the guy. Brian Flores, I think, would be awesome, but I also don't think he wants to leave Minnesota. Those would be two pretty big names, I would say. Robert Saleh, I think, is a fantastic defensive coordinator who just went to the Jets. Now he's just going to get back into defensive coordinating. And who just got fired from Cincinnati? Lou
Anarumo.
Yeah, I'd hire him too. He got gypped. He was a scapegoat.
You could also throw Antonio Pierce into that list of candidates as well. Probably not as high as some of these guys like Saleh and Anarumo, but I think that he's going to get some attention for DC jobs if he wants one into this cycle.
Yeah, I agree, but I don't know if I think you're taking a risk on him because he just doesn't have the experience that, if we're talking proven names, I think those three are ahead of him.
All right, that's a wrap for today then.
Awesome. With that said, guys, we are heading out of here. Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcast. And as always, find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. We'll be back normal time tomorrow afternoon, 4 p.m. Eastern time. I will be back in the city of Pittsburgh, so we'll be rocking from the studio. With that said, enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg. Peace.